Now let's introduce our speakers. Sehaj is a software engineering master's graduate with bachelors in computer science, computer networking. She's a Brainstation bootcamp survivor as well. She's trained in full stack development with focus on front-end technologies, majorly MERN stack, and she's passionate about coding skills and software development mentoring. She has contributed to various hackathons and open source projects. Sehaj is also working as a full stack developer and has hands-on experience in mentoring as teaching assistant. And about our next speaker, Dahnaya Joyner. She is a software engineer with over 7 years of experience, specializing in front-end development. Her passion for coding extends beyond just writing code. She loves teaching and mentoring others to grow their skills. And she had the privilege of working as an instructor and tutor, helping aspiring and current developers navigate to the complexities of web development. Welcome, ladies. We are extremely happy to have you with us today, and the stage is yours.
All right, thank you. 1, 2. You can see the agenda.
We do.
Okay. All right. So, hello, I'm Dahnaya Joyner. And thank you for the intro. So we're here to talk about JavaScript, and this is the agenda, just to give you an idea of what the slides will be. So what is JavaScript? The role of JavaScript in web development. Where does JavaScript run? Variables in JavaScript, understanding variable syntax, variable types, numbers, arithmetic, mixing data types, and the conclusion. So what is JavaScript? Other than the reason why we're all here today. It's one of the most popular coding languages, and it's used to create dynamic websites along with HTML and CSS, and it enhances the user experience with interactive elements. The role of JavaScript is that it enables users to interact with web pages. So if you ever have seen a form and maybe you hit submit and it says like this field cannot be empty, that is form validation. That is an example of JavaScript. Or if you have seen slideshows on websites or things like confirmation windows, that is JavaScript. So what would it look like to not have JavaScript? So let's look at this. Sure. Can you see this fiddle, or is this still? Okay. So we have this fiddle, and we see 3 input fields. And let's see what happens when I input this, when I submit it. Great. We see, please enter a valid email. And when we enter a valid email, now we can see that we can see this pop up. But let's see what happened if. All right, so I just hit submit. Nothing's happening. And that's because right now the JavaScript is commented out and it's literally just 3 fields and a submit button. But when we add JavaScript, now we're able to interact with the web pages. And I just want to, so this is the function validate email that validates the email when you hit submit. Just a side note about comments, when you want to comment like multiple lines, you do the slash and the asterisk here, and then the asterisk and the slash. I don't know if it's a backward or forward slash, but it's a slash. And when you want to, so I'm going to, when you want to just do a single line, then you do 2 slashes. And let's see what happens when I do that. I'm just going to do this, and you can see that it's a valid email, but because I commented out that line is no longer going to run. So comments are for commenting out code, but also it's for helping you and other developers when they come in to look at your code. It helps to give some context. So maybe for this, I'll say this is a pop-up for a valid email. And so this helps people when they come after you. This will also help you in 5 months when you come back to look at this and you're able to say, oh, okay, that's what I was doing. So yes, so this is how you would use comments. Just that's a side note. So that is an example of how you would use, or that's an example of how, if the role of JavaScript, without it, nothing would happen. So where does JavaScript run? It runs in browsers and servers, and every browser has a JavaScript engine. So for example, Chrome's JavaScript engine is V8, and Firefox's JavaScript engine is SpiderMonkey, because, well, every browser has a JavaScript engine because it was originally made to run in the browser. Now we have Node.js, which allows JavaScript to run outside of the browser on servers. So we can see what that looks like. Are you able to see the console, or just you see a blank screen? Okay, okay, great. So we have this console, and before I used an IDE, here I'm going to use just the developer console that is used in Chrome, just to drive home the point that JavaScript is running in the browser. So, well, there's a couple ways to open this. You can right click and hit inspect when you're using Chrome. I believe it's the same for Firefox. I think with Safari, it's like a couple steps, but yeah, so you open that, or what I usually do, I have a Mac, so I'll do Command-Shift-C, and that will also open it. So yeah, so, and then you click on console, and I'm going to do console.log hello world. And we can see that it printed out hello world. Console.log is how you print to the console in JavaScript. So we see hello world. I can also do something like this. I can then maybe see what. And that gives me apples. So this is just driving home the point that JavaScript is running in the console. Now this is just for testing purposes. Once the page is refreshed, everything's gone. So what I'll usually do is I might test something in the console, and then, like, if it works, I'll add it to my code. Yes, so what I just had plants, fruits, apples. So this is called initializing a variable. Const is the initializer, fruits, the variable name, the assignment, and the value. So what are variables in JavaScript? They're used to store data. Semicolons are optional, but good practice. So I could do this, and so that will also, work. So they are optional, but yeah, you might just err on the side of using them. And it helps to reduce errors. So for example, if I had a sentence like that says, I like red apples and green apples, it would maybe be better if I could use a variable for apples, because I could have spelled apples incorrectly. What maybe I want to say maybe I want the sentence or write a paragraph and say apples a couple more times. It would help if I would do something like this. This is called interpolation. This allows us to write strings and variables together. So here you can see it gives me the same sentence, but now I just kind of reduced the possibility of having an error because I was able to just use fruits, which I just have to make sure I spell apples correctly once, and I can use it as many times as possible. And so this just saves me time on possible errors. So let's look at the variable syntax. We have the initializer, which declares a variable. We have the identifier. The identifier, it should be intuitive for others and yourself in the future. Camel case, which looks like this. So that means that the first letter, the first word is lowercase, and then every word after that is capitalized. It is case sensitive, so if you say my name with a capital M, it will not equal my name with capital M and capital N. And then you have the assignment and the value. So for the initializers, we have const, let, and var. Const is immutable. It's best for constant values, which means you never plan on changing that value. We have let, which you can change the value of that variable. And we also have var, which is less commonly used today. I mostly see it in like tutorials or examples online, but as far as writing it in actual code, we want to really just use constant let. So there's quite a few reasons why we don't use var anymore. This is a good article right here. I can write it in the chat after this, but just one example, function scoping. We have this if block and we declare X here, but we're able to get the value of X outside of that scope, which is not great because with var, you can also reassign the value. And so you don't want to be able to access and be able to reassign a value that is outside of the scope, because that can just cause a lot of errors. Similarly, we have this for loop, and you can access the I outside of the for loop when you initialize it with var. So yeah, with var, this can come with, it comes with a lot of problems with scope. So, and scope is the concept that refers to where values and functions can be accessed. And so ES6 was introduced, and it introduced, well, ES6, sorry, introduced constant let to address these issues. And ES6 is ECMAScript 6, which ECMAScript is the standardization of JavaScript, and ES6 is the 6th version of ECMAScript, of the ECMAScript programming language. So basically, rules came out and they standardized how variables should be initialized. Now let's look at some variable naming conventions. So if you have a variable name, you're just looking to say something like fruits or animals or something like that. You say my name, that is good, that's camel case. My underscore name, not so much. It's not like you can't do that, but that's not the convention that is used in JavaScript. Booleans, it's good practice to say like is something, like because a Boolean will return true or false. So it's best to say like is dog owner, is teaching. You could like dog owner, it doesn't give good context as to what the variable is doing. Function names, just naming it name, that is not great. Big nope. We have get name, which is great because that actually gives context to what the function is doing. We have another one, like handle on click. This basically tells you that on click, this is what we're gonna do. Some things to keep in mind when you are naming your variables. We have numbers. In JavaScript, there are different data types. One of them being numbers. You have two main types: integers, which they are whole numbers that can be positive, negative, or zero. You have floats that are numbers with decimal points. And you can also do basic arithmetic. 2 plus 2, 4 minus 4, 3 times 2. We can also do a little more complex math. We had that, I don't know if you all saw, but like that viral math expression. So let's see what JavaScript says about it. Some people was like, it's 5. Some people said it's 125. Let's see what JavaScript says. It is. All right, so we have our answer. It is 125. And yeah, so for multiplication, you want to use the asterisk. I get caught up all the time. I try to use the X, and that is not right. So yeah, be sure to use the asterisk. And yeah, so as you can see, like when people ask me, or when I talk to people about being a software engineer, one of the things they always say is, I'm not good at math. And to that, I say, you don't have to be good at math because you write programs that do the math for you. So problem solved. Yeah, so that, one thing is mixing data types. Sometimes, like what happens when you add a string and a number, if you add 2 and 2, you will get 22 because JavaScript treats the number as a string. So that can lead to some unexpected behavior. So if you ever run into this where you're trying to add numbers, but they just combine, then most likely one of your numbers or most likely one of them is a string. So you will want to look into that. All right, so in conclusion, JavaScript is the behavior layer of the web. If you're anything like me, someone that's always on their phone, your life might be kind of boring without JavaScript because you won't be able to do anything. And it's used for both front end and back end development. It's essential for creating dynamic, interactive web experiences. Variables are used to store data and should be named intuitively. You want to use only constant let for initializing. The types of numbers are integers and floaters. Be careful with mixing data types. And you do not have to be a mathematical genius to be a software engineer. And that is me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the amazing explanation, Dahnaya. You did serve the content in a very explanatory way. And Sehaj, now it's your turn.
Thank you for this beautiful session by Dahnaya. We're proceeding forward with the operators where she left, that's arithmetic operators. But first, we'll understand primitive data types. Just to make sure, JavaScript is a scripting language and it can be used on client and server side using Node.js. So JavaScript is a language which can be used in backend as well as frontend as well. So primitive data types are number, string, Boolean, null, and undefined. They're beautifully explained by Dahnaya about numbers. So we'll be proceeding forward with the strings here. JavaScript strings. A string is a series of characters like a name, and it's written with quotes. You can use single quote, double quote, or a backtick. So this is an example of a code where a variable has a string assigned to it. It can be used with single quotes, double quotes, or backticks. Then we have JavaScript Booleans. JavaScript Booleans, they have two values, true or false, and they're used to make decisions in JavaScript code based on conditions. So as we move forward with operators, we'll receive the answers as true or false, that is 0 and 1 language of computer. So this is an example. We have a variable which have assigned value of 5, y have an assigned value of 5, and z has 6. So if we compare x is equal to y, it will return true. But if we see x is equal to 6, like that is z, it will return false. I'll just go ahead and do the same example. Is my screen okay, or do you want me to zoom it, the code pen?
It looks great.
Okay, thank you. And here I'm going to do a bit different thing. I'm going to define z as a string of 5. And now we'll do console.log x is equal to y. And then we'll also do console.log x is equal to z. So according to us, we should be receiving true on this and false on this because this is a number and this is a string. But what we are seeing in console is just true. Because reason is that this operator that's double equal to just see if the value is equal or not. It has a bit tricky thing here. If I do x is equal to z, now it will return false. So triple equal to is an operator that is a strictly equal, what we say. It is used to see if the value as well as the type of the variable is same or not, whereas the double equal to just see if the value is same or not. But the Booleans returns the value true or false. So they are used to make decisions in JavaScript based on conditions. Then we have null and undefined. Null means a variable has a value assigned, but its value is empty. whereas undefined is initial value of a variable that has not been assigned any value. For example, let x, this is an empty, so this is a null value, whereas this has not been defined anything, so y will have undefined. How we'll check is console.log type of x. We'll move forward, like what is type of? Console.log type of y. Now, if we see for type of x, it is saying string, whereas for type of y, it is saying undefined. It is clear it is saying undefined because the value of the initial value of a variable has not been assigned. Whereas for null, it says null because the value is empty. So null value is itself a value. So it will say that this is a string value which is empty. I'll give you one more example here. So it has a legal value and a type. So if I do like this, so this, we have not defined it yet. So it is giving us a syntax error. But if I define it as an empty, which is a null value, the value will always return as a string because it has both legal value and a type. So just to make sure, null means a variable has a value assigned, but it's an empty value, whereas undefined is that the value is not defined yet, as the name says itself. We'll move forward to operators. Before that, variables were discussed by Dahnaya, where she explained how we should name the variable, why we should use let, const, and stuff, and our camel case operator. So we'll be using everything. Operators, we have arithmetic, logical, comparison, and then string. Arithmetic operators were also covered by her, which has addition, subtraction, all mathematical operators. So what is operator? It's a symbol that gives one or more operands to perform an operation that produces a result. So we have two operands where we have a symbol. It could be logical, comparison, arithmetic, or string operator that is type of. We can use that so that it gives us a result. And these are the results which we receive here. For arithmetic operators, we also have increment and decrement operators as well. So in arithmetic operators, we have addition, subtraction, division, modulo, and stuff. We have increment and decrement operators. So for example, this has value 5. We can do console.log x plus plus. So plus plus means x is equal to x plus 1. It will say 5 only because the value of x has not changed yet. So it says the value is assigned to x plus 1. But now when I console log x again, where the value has already changed, it will come to 6. So here I'll explain again. In increment or decrement operators, the value increases, that is x plus plus or x minus minus. So in plus plus, the value increases and it increases by this expression, x is equal to x plus 1. So it gets assigned to a bigger value. So when you console log it again, the value changes. Now, if I do console log x negative negative, we will see the value is 6 because that is the initial value. And this means x is equal to x negative 1. Now the value of x has changed to 5. So it changes later on after the expression. So there are two operators. One is this, and then other is. So if you have plus plus x before, the value will change before. So it gets assigned before. Let's move to logical operators. Logical operators is and, or not. This gives the answers in Boolean. So it's usually used to see, I can give you an example here. Let X is true and let Y is false. We can use AND operator here, console.log X and Y. The answer is false. So one of it is in AND, both of it has to be true in order to return true. So in this, we see X is true, whereas Y is false. So it will return false. Whereas for OR, as the name says itself, we can do X or Y. So one has to be true. It will return true here. And for not complement, it will just return opposite of it. So we can do console.log if we want, like not X, so it is going to return false. So Boolean gives us as a result true or false. And these are the logical operators. As we move forward in functions and the complex JavaScript, we'll get to know why we use the logical operators. Next is a comparison operator. We already covered equal to and strictly equal, but I'll go back to this again. In comparison operator, equal to will check if the value is equal or not. However, the triple equal to will, that's a strictly equal, it will check the value and the type. The type of the operator, like is it the string, number, as we saw, like X is 5 and then Y is strings 5. But if you do equal to, it will return true. But if you do strictly equal, it will return false. Then we have not equal to, it will see if it is equal or not. And then we have greater than equal to or less than equal to. Same is how not strictly equal works. It will see if the value and type is equal or not. Now we move forward to type of operator. So type of operator is how we work. Same. We'll see what is the type of operator. We do type of X here. It will return Boolean. So you'll see what type of operator it is. It returns the type of an operand. Console.log type of. You can also, if I do this as a string, and I can do type of Y, it will return string. So you can change and you can see like what type of operator it is. Once you're in a complex JavaScript, if you want to see what type is used in it, you can easily see type of X, Y, or variable. Now we move forward to string concatenation. We have two of the operators in string, that is concatenation and interpolation. Don't mix this plus as an arithmetic. So this is used to combine this is concatenate operator. It is used to combine two strings. If I put here Sehaj and then now I want to see how they concatenate together. I will do X plus Y. So it will display Sehaj Wadhwa here. And concatenate operator, it is used to join the strings together. And this is a different operator with addition operator, even though they have same character, but it is used to join. We can also use it as X plus Y plus we can also use concatenate operator and the arithmetic operator together. I will show you how that works. Plus 42 plus 1. We'll move forward with the interpolation. I'll come back to this, how we can use concatenate operator with string and the number as well. Then we have the string interpolation. So the value of variable or expression can be interpolated into a string. That is, it can be substituted into the string. And string must be a template literal. So that's wrapped in a backticks here. The expression to be interpolated is placed inside the curly brackets preceded by a $sign. So if you see a code snippet here, we have a variable adjective with the word wonderful. And the statement is welcome to my adjective, because this will get substituted with the word wonderful site. So console.log the statement, it will be this. We will try this here. Fine. So this, if you wanted to use the string, which has to be changed or interpolated, we have to use it in a backticks. Hello world. And then we use $sign, curly brackets, the variable. It's very interpolated. And do console.log. Right. So we see hello world. Hi, I did not put the word hi. I used it as a variable, but I substituted that in a statement. We have it here in console.log, hi, and then interpolated. We can have multiple of those. And we can also interpolate an arithmetic expression. So instead of this x here, I can do 10 plus 5 interpolated. 15. So that's what I was talking before for concatenation. We have to use it as an interpolation. We have to use that with a $sign, curly brackets, and then you can put an arithmetic expression. You can also do a comparison, logical, anything, so that you get the value here. This works as a different solution and then displays the whole thing together. We'll move forward with the objects here. We know what arrays are. I'll just go forward with the just a small overview what arrays usually are. It's an ordered collection of values where it holds the value in the form of the curly in square brackets. And it holds a value that are all part of the same group, performing the same operation on many values. In arrays, they are referenced by the index 0. And in arrays, it's also an object, and object is also an arrays. We'll move forward, and then I will explain that to you again. So what object is? It's a collection of key value pairs, and that a type that can present in many different things. So they are used for defining and storing a complex data and managing a complex data set without storing everything in a variable. So in a variable, we store one value, whereas in an object, we store key value pairs, like many values. For example, let's take this car as an object. So this has a value that is property of name, model, weight, color, and it also has the methods or functions, like it can start, it can drive, it can brake, and it can stop. So this whole thing is one object. Instead of defining them as multiple variables, we'll use one object of a car, which can hold properties and methods, like what properties that object has, and it can also store the functions. And it's used for storing complex data set. We have different ways of creating an object. First is declaration with initial operators and values. So you use like the syntax. So we are creating an object person, const person, and then we initialize the values. We initialize first name, last name, age, and color. This is a simple way of initializing. This is also how array is initialized as well. Then we have the another way, that is declaration with an object literal. That is, object literal is defining it as an empty value and then initializing the values by accessing the object. So here we did const person, and this is an empty object, but then we access the object, that is person dot first name John, person dot last name, person dot age, and person dot eye color. And this is the best and most common way to declare by object literal, that is for code readability and for efficiency of the code as well. Declaration with a new operator, you can also use const person, and then you can do new object, that is creating a new empty object. It has declared with initial properties, value, declaration with a new operator, and then again accessing the properties. But the best is doing with the object literal. It's for code readability. This and this works the same. Here we are initializing it before. Here we are creating empty objects, and then we are accessing the objects and adding properties. The best is using object literal. It's for code simplicity and better way. How we can access values and object. So here we saw that we are creating empty object and then we are accessing it. So there are two ways to access the values in the object. One is dot notation, and other is square bracket notation. We'll create an object here. We'll do const car. I will do it with the object literal, that is this one. And now if we want to access it, we will do either by dot notation or square bracket notation. In dot notation is I can do car dot name, and in the bracket notation I can do car name, like this. So let's initialize like this. I can do access values. I can do car, and I can put name to Ford. That's how I'm accessing the object. This is an object which I created as an empty object or using an object literal. Now I'm accessing the object. So by this, I did the square bracket notation. And here I am using car dot, what we can use, color is equal to black. And now I can use console.log. I want to display whole object. I can do object car. So here is what we see. Object car, name is Ford, color is black. Here I created the empty object, that is by using object literal. Here I used square bracket notation and access the object. And here I used dot notation to access the object, and this is to display whole object. Here we learn how we can access values in the object, and then we can assign the properties, but we can also display using these two notations. So I have an code like here. Suppose this is car, and then we did a regular initializing it before. We can do Ford, color black. So this is an object which I initialized before. It has the values, and now we want to console.log using two notation, that is accessing the value. We can do console.log car.name. So it will say Ford because I use dot notation to display. If you want to use if you want to display a single value, I can do console.log car bracket notation color and this that says black. If you want to display a single value in an object. So these two are very important, that is using dot notation or a square bracket notation. You can assign new properties or you can display. There are complex values on arrays or like objects. Like I use the word array is also an object and our object is also an array. This is when I'm going to explain. So array is a part of is also an object. An object is also an array. That's how it works. We can have arrays inside an object, and then we can have objects inside of an array. If you look at this code, it's a complex code. Here it shows the arrays of objects. So this ID1, this is one object, this is second, this is third, but this user is an array. So it shows an array of an object, and each of the object also has arrays of object. So you see this part, this value, course is completed. It has the array of object. So web dev and UX is an object which it is having as an array. I'll explain you how this works. These are called nested objects. We created an array users. We created first object that has ID1 and name. Name is also an object. Sorry, this is the wrong parentheses I've used here. It will be curly brackets. So ID has the value number. Name is also an object. And then we're defining it by this way, that is defining it before. We'll have first name, last name. Email is a string and courses is also an array. Same way for ID2 is number. Name is an object. Email is a string. Courses completed is an array. But this whole user, if we see, it is an array itself. So this is how nested objects work. One more thing, objects, they are king of JavaScript. They are containers with properties and methods. Properties are named values, that's these. And methods are functions, as we did. Like, so if we're having a car object, car.brake, car.stop, that is a different way that we can say that those are the methods. Properties can be primitive values, it can be functions, or it can be other objects. As we learned here, these properties can be primitive values. They can also be a function, and they can also be other objects. And methods are functions that are stored as properties. Everything in JavaScript is an object. It's a common description of JavaScript, but it needs little explaining. So you should be convinced objects are objects. It's obvious. Arrays are also objects. I mean, it's less obvious, but I hope that makes sense by now. But in generally, JavaScripts are either classified as primitives or objects. Primitives are numbers, strings, and Booleans, and objects are arrays, functions, math, date, window, document, or any object which you create. But primitives, that is numbers, string, and Booleans, they can also behave like objects. So for example, you can get a length of a string using a length property. So if we do let string is hello, and then we can do console.log string.length. That's 5. So why is this? Well, that's because string is actually an array. Otherwise, it should just return 1 if it's just one data type. But why it is returning 5? It's because string is also actually an array of an individual characters. So you can probably guess that string prototype inherits from object prototype. And that inherits from an array prototype as well. Remember, array is just an object using numeric indexes only. Whereas strings, it can be used as one word, but if you're looking at the length of it, it takes different indexes and the value is itself 5. So that's how JavaScript works. And that's one of the most powerful but quirky languages as of now. And you don't need which thing inherits what other thing and how to understand JavaScript the way. But all what you should remember is that everything in JavaScript is an object. And as I said, objects are king. If you have any questions, you can go forward and ask.
Sehaj, thank you so much. Wonderful session. So for both of you, if anybody wants to answer, so the question is, what are the key concepts to understand when starting with JavaScript? What you should know, you must know to be able to land a job, for example?
I would say the fundamentals like data structures and understanding how to work with them. So like arrays, for example, knowing how to manipulate arrays or strings or yeah, and part of that is also the soft skills and not just the technical skills, like being able to talk about what you want to do with your code, like explain it and look like you know what you're talking about using the correct terminology. As far as being a junior, I think that is what they look for, that you have those fundamentals down.
Thank you. And we do have a second question. It is how can you interact with the DOM using JavaScript?
I can take that. I don't know if you want to take that.
So yeah. So I was reading the chat. How can you interact with the DOM using JavaScript? The DOM is like a document object model. So JavaScript, as we see here, we can change the HTML with JavaScript that is using a script tag. But as we were looking, we do have a session which is especially for DOM. There are many ways. It's like get element by ID, where you can access different IDs or classes, and you can use events to change the stuff on the HTML. So I would leave that to that session. You can access the HTML and you can change it. It's as Dahnaya, she was saying, JavaScript is used for creating a dynamic websites. It's a dynamic, it's a scripting language. And DOM, you can access or you can interact with DOM using JavaScript, using a script tag, or there are other like inner HTML or document.get element by ID, but we'll leave it to that session for now.
Thank you so much. We do have one more question. What resources or strategy can help you stay updated on the latest JavaScript features?
There are many websites. I'll post the links as well, which I use to prepare for this JavaScript session. And that's what I usually do, just read different articles. And just to stay updated on JavaScript, I would say for now, as what this session we had, is to focus what arrays, what objects are and how they work. And if there's any difference in any changes in the events or any new properties are there, I'll share the link to that.